So essentially what we saw is that Wall Street's Clearinghouse, which shares in Treasurys on a blockchain this week, with roughly 40 firms, and that includes JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. The pilot answers the question that the offshore wrapper tokens never could, whether you could actually own anything. And it also reveals tokenization's arrival as a plumbing upgrade and not as a way to widen the access. The headline reads as arrival: JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Vanguard, and New York Stock Exchange among 40 firms, instructing the DTCC, the institution that keeps the official record of who owns which American share, to settle real transactions on the blockchain. But read what the tokens are being used for rather than the list of who's using them, and a different story appears. Now, settlement happens on one of the two networks that are chosen by the firm, Hyperledger, that is DTCC's own, and Canton, a network owned by Wall Street. Both are closed systems, open only to the approved members. Neither Ethereum nor Solana are involved, and against the 114 trillion the DTCC keeps the record for, nothing here moves a meaningful number. It's a test of the plumbing. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to another episode of the Capital Insights series. This series sits within our Fundamental Through the Noise series here at Punjab Capital Research. And today we wanted to talk to you about market infrastructure and tokenization collateral. This video is going to be about what DTCC's tokenization pilot settles about the ownership. So essentially what we saw is that Wall Street's Clearinghouse, which shares in Treasurys on a blockchain this week, with roughly 40 firms, and that includes JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. The pilot answers the question that the offshore wrapper tokens never could, whether you could actually own anything. And it also reveals tokenization's arrival as a plumbing upgrade and not as a way to widen the access. The headline reads as arrival: JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Vanguard, and New York Stock Exchange among 40 firms, instructing the DTCC, the institution that keeps the official record of who owns which American share, to settle real transactions on the blockchain. But read what the tokens are being used for rather than the list of who's using them, and a different story appears. They're moving the collateral between the dealers, backing short-term loans, and settling share trades. Not public access, not round-the-clock markets, not cutting out the middlemen. The DTCC has built a faster way to shift collateral between the institutions that already trust each other, with ownership still decided by the record keeper that has decided it for 50 years. This is a smaller claim than the headline, but a more durable one. Let's do a deep dive into what actually went live. The SEC allowed DTCC's depository arm to tokenize the assets it holds late last year, restricting it to the most easily traded securities. The legal basis is a December 2025 no action letter, a written assurance from the regulator that it will not bring an enforcement case. That is permission, and the permission is not law. It runs for 3 years, limited live trades are running now, and the full launch is in October. Now, settlement happens on one of the two networks that are chosen by the firm, Hyperledger, that is DTCC's own, and Canton, a network owned by Wall Street. Both are closed systems, open only to the approved members. Neither Ethereum nor Solana are involved, and against the 114 trillion the DTCC keeps the record for, nothing here moves a meaningful number. It's a test of the plumbing. And which brings us to the twin and the wrapper. There are two ways to put a share on the blockchain, and there are not two versions of the same thing. The first is what the industry calls the wrapper. Think of it as a lookalike, a token that is built to follow a share's price. Anyone can buy one. Nobody who owns one owns the share. There is no legal claim on the company, no dividend by right, no vote. The lookalike has a market and no asset. The second is a digital twin, which is DTCC's approach. Here the token is the share, the same legal ownership, the same dividends, the same voting rights, and it can be swapped back into the ordinary share whenever the holder wants. But it can only change hands between an approved list of financial institutions. The twin has an asset and no market. Now, this is what the pilot settles, and it deserves saying plainly because the industry has spent 2 years blurring it. Neither one is a stock. Each solves exactly half the problem the other one left behind. The thing worth watching is the gap between them. These are two instruments named after the same company with different legal identities and nothing forcing their prices together. That gap can open and stay open. This snapshot gives you exactly what we're talking about. Two tokens, one company, Different things entirely. The twin, that is DTCC's approach, and the lookalike, that is the offshore wrappers. Next, let's talk about the collateral and not access. Now, DTCC's chief executive described the goal as system safety, resilience, and finding ways to free up trapped liquidity. That phase is doing all the work out here, and it has nothing to do with widening the access. Trapped liquidity is the collateral sitting still, a bond handed to one counterparty in the morning that cannot be retrieved and handed to another by the afternoon because the paperwork takes longer than the date does. Which is why Repo is the pilot. A repo is a short-term borrowing in which a firm hands over securities as security for cash and buys them back shortly after. It is the engine room of daily funding, and it is the real use case out here. Now, if a dealer can pass collateral to a lender and have ownership change hands in the same instant, with no window in which one side has paid and other has not yet delivered, the cushion of the spare safe assets it holds against the timing risk gets smaller. This is the story about how many times a day the same bond can be used, and it ends as a capital story. The gain shows up as freed up balance sheet and not as a new product. And this is why the restriction to approved members is not a limitation to be relaxed later. It is what makes the binding ownership work at all. Open the circle and you are back to a lookalike. So essentially, the lookalike was building a market without an asset. The twin is building an asset without a market. This is not an access technology wearing a plumbing costume. It is a plumbing technology wearing an access headline. Let's wrap up this update video with why the record keeper wins out here. Blockchains are supposed to make the clearinghouse unnecessary if everyone shares the same ledger. Nobody needs a central record keeper. That claim is now formally dead, and the manner of its death is instructive. The clearinghouse is the one issuing the tokens. The reason is that DTCC's advantage was never the ledger. Anyone can keep a ledger. Its advantage is that courts, regulators, and bankruptcy judges treat DTCC's record as the final word on who owns what. Now, that is not a technical property that better technology can compete away. It's a license granted by the regulation and a long habit. These tokens carry the rights of real shares because the DTCC says they do, and because the SEC lets DTCC say so. In wrap-up, we can say that this is a real infrastructure event described by the wrong vocabulary. Tokenization is arriving as a collateral upgrade run by the incumbent record keeper and limited to the assets that need it least. The revolution, if it comes, begins the day the permission widens to assets that are genuinely hard to move, and that date is not on the calendar as yet. That's all that we wanted to share with you in this update video. Stay tuned and for the next one.